Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the Nintendo Wii. This is just our personal experiences, some of the games that we want to highlight, and just some of the things that we thought were weird about the system. This isn't like an in-depth review. We're just going to talk about how we feel about it and some of the stuff we thought was cool.
Did you get the Wii when it first came out?
I got the Wii right when it came out, and what's kind of funny about it is I got this is the year I got married.
Okay.
And I got the Wii, like, while I was in the house, but I wasn't yet married. So this was like I'm sitting like by myself playing Wii Sports, like that kind of thing, like waiting for the day to come. But it was cool because when the Wii came out, it had one game that was universal that everyone liked, which was Wii Sports.
Wii Sports, I loved it.
One
One of the few sports games that I actually really liked.
Right?
Yeah,
that took the world by storm. And like for a lot of people, I mean, this system sold a ton. For a lot of people, this was the Wii Sports player. But then it also came with a hardcore title, which you could also buy a hardcore title,
which is what I bought the system for,
which is Twilight Princess.
Yeah. So I actually was in line with James. We went out and we bought we were in line for the for the Wii. I was really excited for the system because I really wanted to play Twilight Princess. I'd seen the previews and all that, and Twilight Princess seemed like it was going to be a very dark game for the system, which was cool because I was a big fan of Zelda 2. That's why I initially got the console, but then it came, I believe the pack-in title was the Wii Sports, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what was nice about this is we look at all the game systems that have come out since, and they haven't had pack-in titles. But this came with Wii Sports.
1-2 Switch should have been a pack-in title.
1-2 Switch definitely should have been a pack-in title. I think more people would have played it if they, you know.
That's ridiculous that it wasn't. But anyway, so this system, Ryan's right. I loved Wii Sports, and the whole idea of this system was to get people, off the couch, and Nintendo had a long history of trying to do that. The Power Pad, Nintendo was trying to get people up. They've always been doing that kind of thing. Even the Switch is like an on-the-go thing. Looking back on it now, over 10 years later, it's kind of like a part of history now. Like I think back to all the other consoles, when you were playing Atari, when you were playing NES, when you were playing Super Nintendo, Genesis, all that stuff, GameCube, you're just sitting there playing the games, but this is the only one I remember you'd be at a party and people would be playing and people are standing up. I mean, it really was revolutionary. Now, this system wasn't extremely powerful. At the same time, there was there was the Xbox 360 and there was the PS3 and then there was this. What are the specs on...
So the Xbox 360 and the PS3 were both way more powerful. The Xbox 360 had 512 mega RAM, it had a triple core processor. The video card in it was more advanced, even though both the video card in the 360 and the video card in the Wii are both ATI. They're both made by ATI. They're worlds apart in terms of performance. This system only has 88 meg of RAM.
And you said Xbox had
512.
Wow, that's a big difference.
The
360.
The 360. This has 512 meg of onboard storage, which really isn't enough to store the games that are coming on the big discs. Whereas both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 had large hard drives.
And that's right. This did have the big discs. But what was cool about this system is that it was backwards compatible with the GameCube, which had the smaller discs. Now, the GameCube, I loved the GameCube personally. It had a lot of great games. But for Nintendo, it wasn't, as far as I know, it wasn't the best-selling console. Where the Wii came along and it was gangbusters.
The Wii was the best-selling console of the generation. The other consoles obviously sold a heck of a lot more games.
Yeah.
But this was the best-selling console. I really want to talk about the backward compatibility that you just mentioned because I think it's important. This is a slot disk drive. It takes both the small GameCube discs and it takes the large Wii discs that we showed you. But, like, the Wii is probably the biggest push for backward compatibility of any system I've ever seen. Look, it's like a whole GameCube. There's all 4 of the controller ports, the 2 memory card ports. It works flawlessly.
That was one of the best things Nintendo ever did was
Yeah.
make it so that you could play GameCube games on this system because, you know, remember how pissed people were with the Super Nintendo that you couldn't put the NES games into it? backwards compatibility goes a long way with making the fans happy, and we succeeded.
I think that this move is going to haunt Nintendo with their esports ambitions, because they came out with this, and obviously when people played Smash Brothers competitively, when they played Brawl, they wanted to use the GameCube controller that they were used to for Melee. But then when Smash for Wii U came out, they had to do this and come out with the GameCube adapter.
Yeah.
Because the Wii U doesn't have this.
Because now you're talking about, for the Wii U, you're talking about 2 consoles later, still using the same controllers from a few generations prior.
We're talking, early 2000s, people playing GameCube with this.
And even to this day, I'm wondering with the Switch if they're going to do something like that. Because still, if they bring out a Smash Brothers game for the Switch, I still want to play it with the GameCube controller.
Yeah, absolutely. Why? And I'm thinking, why do you think that Switch dock has those USB ports? What's going to be the main peripheral? It's going to be that thing, and I hope they don't come out with a different one, because it would be a pain.
Just use that.
Those things are like $40.
Right.
Do we really need to buy?
Okay, I would not be surprised at all if you have to buy another one, because look at look at what they do otherwise. You look at the SNES Classic and stuff like that.
Speaking of buying things that you already bought, the Wii marked the launch of Nintendo's Virtual Console service. So on the Wii, you could go in and you could play. I remember they launched with like the black box games and like a few other various ones like F-Zero and things like that.
Yeah.
But having the ability to play NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis,
it was amazing.
Master System, TurboGrafx.
I just didn't like how long you had to wait.
Am I missing any? Was there any Neo Geo?
I don't know.
I'd have to think. I don't know for sure. But definitely it was Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Master System, Genesis, TurboGrafx.
Yeah.
And there might have been a few other ones out there. Being able to play those games was awesome.
It was awesome that they offered that.
What wasn't awesome is Nintendo's online service. Yeah, with the having the friend codes to play with different people and all that. I mean, this system coexisted with the modern Xbox Live and PlayStation networks.
We've been through that recently.
Yeah.
Ryan and I both feel that Nintendo should have a service similar to Steam, to where you can just
like it's a shame. Like if I buy Super Mario World on this thing, and then I go to my Wii U, it's not shared. If I go to my Switch, it's not even available.
Right.
If I go to my 3DS, it's not available. Like, why isn't it unified? Like, this is an easy problem. Like, if you are a company that can engineer this thing with motion controllers and everything, why can't I have shared profiles? Why can't I have shared voice chat? Why can't I have shared friends list? Why isn't it all connected? And Nintendo's still going through the trouble today with the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they need to get that service. So let's talk a little bit about the controllers. There's something I don't really like about the controllers, I will have to say. When you turn them to the side and you use them as like NES controllers, if you're playing New Super Mario Brothers or something like that, which I have to say, by the way, is one of my favorite Mario games ever. I love that. And you were saying it's old Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, New Super Mario Brothers. It's not a bad thing, but it is like old Super Mario Brothers. Like it's like a return.
I mean, that's the idea.
I mean, it's a little different with like the wall jumping and stuff like that, and it's a great game.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny that it's called like New Super Mario Brothers.
And by the way, there's been so many of those games. There's like the Luigi one, and like there's a million
New Super Mario Brothers, the Luigi. There's like for Wii U.
Yeah,
yeah.
Those games are great though. I actually love those games. I always felt that this controller, it felt like holding a stick of butter. It's very slippery, where the NES controller didn't feel like that. My favorite Nintendo controllers, I do love the NES controller because you can take the NES controller and you can throw it against the wall and it's fine. And trust me, I've done that.
Right.
The Super Nintendo controller, you got to be a little bit more careful with, because those things will break on you and the wires kind of get messed up. But great controller. The GameCube controller, I absolutely love. It was form-fitted to your hand. One of the best controllers ever. Obviously, people still play it with, Smash Brothers and everything. This controller, I never really loved it. It was always a little awkward. Sometimes you'd be playing a game and you'd want to hit this button and it would be hard to get to with certain games and things like that. I remember playing Super Monkey Ball for... Now,
you're holding it like this?
I loved the Super Monkey Ball and Monkey Ball 2 for GameCube, some of the best, but that's with a GameCube controller. When you're playing Monkey Ball with this controller, you had to guide. I like, it was a good concept, but the execution was crap because you had to turn the controller like this, and after 5 minutes of doing that, your wrist is...
You're getting like carpal tunnel.
You're getting carpal tunnel. That game is horrible. Monkey Ball Banana Blitz I'm talking about. And the other main thing that I didn't like about this controller, actually I thought of two things. I've had a lot of problems over the years, not so much when the console first came out, but since the years have gone by, the batteries get really corroded easily. In fact, there's battery corrosion right here. That happens all the time. And, you know, when I go back and I play NES, I can play Super Nintendo, you don't have to deal with that because there's no batteries in there. And then also, the syncing was always a pain in the ass. Now, you sync on the Xbox, it wasn't much of a problem.
So you hold down this button, and then it blinks. And then there's, like, on the regular 360 controller, there's a button on top to sync. But on this one, you kind of got to go in here and do this and hold this down, too. And it's a little bit clunky. It's not what you would want. With the launch of the Virtual Console, they came out with this classic controller. I think it kind of sucks, to be honest.
I never liked it.
Yeah, it's like Nintendo. You made the Super Nintendo controller.
Right.
Okay? And you know what's funny? They took this controller and they put out a Super Nintendo version that was for like Nintendo Power, like Club Nintendo or something. Like, you could get a Super Nintendo controller that plugs into the back.
Like, what I do want to say is, like, this isn't the worst controller in the world. There's worse controllers. Like, look at the Retron 5, the fucking controller that comes with it. There's worse controllers. Like, this isn't the worst, but it's not good. It's not the Super Nintendo controller.
It's not. And, you know, with the Wii U, you have this here, so I'll bring it out. With the Wii U, they tried a little harder.
Those are a little better.
They're a little better, but the thing that plagued the Wii is there's so many games that this thing doesn't work with. There's so many games that... You can't run this.
Also, by the way, I didn't like, you had to plug that into like this controller to get to work and all that.
Exactly.
It's like, why can't you just plug it into the console?
Why can't this just be part of the console? Yeah. And that's that controller.
Kind of stuff. Yeah. They had the wheel and stuff like this. Now this is a gimmick.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it actually. I mean, it worked. You know, you're playing Mario Kart, it's pretty good, but this reminds me of the NES Speed Board, kind of. Yeah. It's kind of like, here, spend an extra $20 for this piece of plastic because you don't need this.
There was a million pieces of plastic for the system. Yeah. There was like golf clubs.
Yeah, there was
you know, I like Link's crossbow training.
Yeah.
I like that game.
Yeah.
But the gun
is
like, you're sitting there with the gun and you're like, come on, and then you take it off like right away. Although that's a well-made accessory. What's not a well-made accessory is you want to play Wii bowling? Play with the Wii bowling ball. You know? Look at this thing.
It's pointless. And it's... Yeah.
Look at this thing. You could kill somebody with this.
Yeah,
here you go.
You actually take the controller, you put it in here, and it's just like... It's just stupid. This is like, hey, we want your money. And this is just the dumbest thing ever.
It's like, hey, assholes, want a bowling ball? Here you go.
I want to say my favorite game for the system was Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Oh, yeah?
That was my favorite game for the Wii. Just awesome everything, awesome controls, you know, awesome everything. A lot of people shit on the Wii and say, oh, it didn't have a lot of great games, and I think that's because there was so much shovelware for the system.
Yeah, the majority, the third-party support for the Wii sucked. It absolutely sucked. There wasn't a lot of good third-party games. There wasn't a lot of really high-end third-party games, but the first-party support was amazing, and it got them through. It got them through that generation.
Yeah.
You had Metroid Prime 3. You had...
Trilogy.
Metroid Prime Trilogy. You had Super Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2, which are some of the greatest 3D Mario games, if not the greatest 3D Mario games. You had Super Smash Bros. Brawl. You had Paper Mario. You have it right there. Right. There was so many good first-party titles for the system. There were 2 Zelda games that were solid, although, you know, Skyward Sword...
I mean, we could get into a whole conversation about that's another video.
You know, so there was a lot of great third-party titles for the system. The system really got carried with the motion control. The motion control was so influential that the PlayStation Move and the Xbox Kinect
copied it.
Came out to copy it. So Nintendo did a lot of great things. I think one of the things that Nintendo didn't realize is so much that went well with the Wii was a result of timing. They got the motion controls just as people were getting smartphones, just as people were doing that. The price point was good for families. They had a Zelda game at launch.
Nintendo's always been good about that.
And you saw with the Wii U, like cognitive dissonance. Like, if you look at the Wii U launch titles, they came out with an Assassin's Creed and a Call of Duty and a Batman Arkham City and, like, all of these games. They were trying to be a hardcore publisher where that was so contrary to what the Wii was.
Well, yeah, this is an old discussion at this point, but since this is sort of a, us talking about the Wii, we got to talk about the name of the Wii. The problem with the Wii U was the fact that people just thought it was like an add-on or something to the Wii, so people weren't really buying it.
Wii is an awful name. Wii is like, it's like you're talking about a dick. Like, I just have to go out and say that. Like,
well, that's an old joke, and everybody says that. Yeah.
Why would you name your console that? Why? Remember when we had consoles with names like the Genesis?
Like, did nobody, when that was going on, did nobody have the balls to say to them, to the Japanese marketing department, like, hey, like in America, it's like dicks. It's like, you might not want to name it
you
that.
Probably don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
or like wee wee, and like it's just
like wee wee. Like, what are we, like little kids? Like, it's
right. The other part of it is kind of like wee, and like grown men.
Yeah.
That
like,
doesn't.
No, I mean, even though the system was for families don't want to have that going on.
Kids always want to be.
Kids want to look cool.
Yeah.
That's why you want kids to buy your console. Call it make it black. Like the Genesis.
Call it the PlayStation.
Call it the PlayStation. like make it call it the like porn, beer, and cigarette station.
I mean, you don't want to do that, but
no, you don't want to do that. But that's like,
but the Switch. I think the Switch is a good name.
Yeah,
for
it's good. It's a good name, and it describes what it does because you could switch it between.
It doesn't sound bad.
It doesn't sound bad. The colors were contemporary. It looks like a piece of electronic equipment that belongs in.
It's much.
It's much better.
Marketing. The Wii was not a bad system. It had a lot of good games. The console itself, it wasn't as powerful, but it didn't need to be. That wasn't the point of the Wii. And it was very successful. And looking back on it, I kind of look back on it fondly, even though it obviously had a lot of problems, but I don't think it was a bad system.
I don't...
You're on the fence? You're more on the fence with it?
I think that Nintendo got really freaking lucky. They made many, many mistakes. Mm-hmm. They got lucky. They had good games. But this was the beginning of the end that was the Wii U. Now we're seeing some kind of like renaissance for Nintendo with the Switch.
Yeah.
But about halfway through the Wii's life, when it was all shovelware titles and Nintendo's releases were few and far between, there really wasn't much going for it. There was one small attempt to give us some good games, and that was in 2 RPGs that came out towards the end of the console's lifespan.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say the saving grace was the Mii's, because...
No, that was The Last Story, which was a JRPG.
Okay.
And Xenoblade Chronicles.
And these were later Wii releases?
These were later, like the trio of later Wii titles. Like when the Wii U was announced and was starting to come out, were Metroid Prime Trilogy, The Last Story, and Xenoblade Chronicles. Those 3 games came out towards the very end, and they were kind of like what kept hardcore gamers going. But there was such a gulf between those 3 releases, one of which is a re-release, and like the meat of Nintendo's content, that I don't know. I mean, the Galaxy series is great. There's great games for the system. But the system, I don't think, will have a positive legacy. And I don't think it'll have a positive legacy because, you can name you can name the standout titles on your fingers and toes. You know, it's not.
Well, we didn't go through all the titles that are good for the system, but there was so much shovelware. There's way more shovelware than there was great games for the system. I mean, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, and like they are so lucky that Wii Sports was as successful as it was.
Right.
So lucky because, you know, I still don't feel like... I feel like Nintendo is an amazing first-party developer, but I don't feel like a first-party developer alone can carry a console. I mean, you're even seeing it with the Switch right now. There's amazing first-party releases. I would say even better than the Wii first-party releases in, you know, Zelda and everything. But the game right now is being carried by indies. And they didn't have that benefit with the Wii and Wii U.
That's true.
But now they do with the Switch. It makes sense. You know, Nintendo's third-party strength. Nintendo's third-party strength has always been on handheld. And that unification needed to happen in the last generation, not in the current generation.
They've always been a step behind. But I feel like they're slowly catching up.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch is amazing.
Yeah.
And the Wii gave us the Wii Sports and things like that. But yeah, I didn't think it was fair to get on this episode and just say, oh, the system was great, because there was a lot of...
Oh, there was a lot of problems.
There was a lot of good moments followed by nothing.
Mm.
And that's really where I had issue with the system.
Yeah. Do you think that Nintendo ever needs to play that game again, where they come out with a system that's more powerful than an Xbox? And I don't think they're probably going to go that direction, but should they?
I think that...
Because here's my thought on that.
Sure.
Is like any console that Nintendo could come out with, even if they came out with something twice as powerful as the PlayStation 4 right now, or the new Xbox, it's like none of it's going to compare to a PC.
Right. I think it's funny that somebody made a parody video of the latest E3 where it's the Xbox One X announcement. And they're like, yeah, the most powerful console ever, the Xbox. And they cut to a picture of a PC rather than the Xbox One X. I think that consoles in general, days are numbered. The days are numbered for consoles.
Well, I don't know about that because you see all these innovative ideas that Nintendo comes up with, and Nintendo may be the one company that sticks around if they can keep coming up with novel ideas. Because sure, we're catching up to the point where the consoles and the PCs, it's like there's no real point. But if you have something different, then it doesn't matter about the power. If you have an idea.
Nintendo at its best is Apple. Nintendo at its worst is like LJN.
Yeah.
Those are the two.
And actually, you mentioned Apple. I just wanted to say, I always thought that this seemed like something that Apple came out with. Because at the time, you got to remember what the PlayStation 3 looked like. Let's put an image of that on screen.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the Xbox 360 looked like? You have an image of that on screen. And now the Wii, it stood up upright. It looked like something Apple would have released, and I think that was Nintendo saying, "Hey, this console isn't like or supposed to be like the 360. This is its own thing, And I think that that's kind of cool. And the Wii kind of stands as a testament of Nintendo going in their own direction and being innovative.
It does, but the game Nintendo's playing is a hard game, and with the Wii, they hit it. Right place, right time, right system, right software, all those things. The challenge that Nintendo had was a much greater challenge than Xbox had or than Sony had with the PlayStation, because their challenge was, it wasn't just call ATI, call NVIDIA and get the best thing in their parts bin for the best price. It was, we got to build this system with the controller and the hardware and the software. And if you look at like the GameCube or you look at like the N64, Nintendo always builds their hardware to serve their first-party software. And the Wii did do a good job at serving their first-party software. Mm-hmm. You look at Zelda, you look at, Mario Galaxy, you look at even, like I said earlier, Link's crossbow training. This hardware is wonderful for that software.
I keep thinking about what Nintendo is going to do after the Switch, and for some reason my mind keeps going back to the virtual reality stuff, which seems to be right now, I don't know, dying off a little bit. Now, I have the HTC Vive, and my thought about Nintendo doing something like that is, like, to have the power you need to make virtual reality any good, you need to have, like, a powerful PC, which are expensive, to run something like that. So I don't think Nintendo's next idea is going to be virtual reality, because imagine how and Nintendo likes to release their consoles very cheaply. For them to come out with like the next, like a virtual reality Mario game that's amazing, probably be like a $10,000 console.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, like even now, virtual reality developers are being limited by budgets because the install bases are very small, but they're also being limited by hardware. You know, when you're pushing two 4K screens, or, you know, on the low end, like two 1080p screens or something like that at 90 frames per second, it's a huge amount of processing power.
Yeah.
And then you have, you know, locomotion challenges and positioning and all of these things. I mean, right now, VR development is a nightmare. It's a nightmare where there's not enough people who have the hardware to justify the high cost.
Right.
But to really wow people, you need to justify the high cost.
So it's like, because we're talking about the Wii, and the Wii was such an innovative thing, I had been thinking, oh, maybe Nintendo is the one who's finally... Because they had the Virtual Boy, which was a failure. Maybe, you know, now they could come out with something that works, because originally there was the Power Glove, and that was essentially what the Wii did, and they got it right. So I thought, oh, maybe Nintendo will be the company to finally get virtual reality perfect, but I just don't see how that's possible with the cost involved.
Look, we're a decade out from today's games at 90 frames per second in 4K being trivial, right? I mean, what does Nintendo do with more horsepower in the future? I mean, how much can you make a cartoon character, basically, like a Mario or something like that?
Well, that's what I thought. You can have them pop out of the screen.
Yeah, you have them do something like that.
Because there's yet to be a virtual, other than the Virtual Boy, but I'm not counting that. There's yet to be a virtual reality Zelda or a virtual reality Mario.
Right.
You know.
The other thing I want to say is Nintendo hasn't given up on this motion controller concept. The most sophisticated motion controller that Nintendo ever built isn't inside the Wii or Wii U. It's in the Switch. So.
With the Joy-Cons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that things like having the camera, like, you know, it really shows with 1-2 switch. You know, those Joy-Cons have the camera in them. They have the HD rumble. They have all of the motion control features that the Wii does. It really shows that Nintendo hasn't given up on that line, and I'm curious, you know, what they do with that in the future.
Anyway, that is our thoughts on the Nintendo Wii. I think it's a pretty good console for its time. It had a lot of revolutionary things about it. Good stuff.
Even though it didn't sell as well, I think the Wii U has better games.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you gotta remember Breath of the Wild came out for Wii U too. You know, so it doesn't have the Zelda hole.
That's true.
You know,
and you could play like Wind Waker HD, which is awesome. They had all those HD remixes.
Twilight Princess,
and then they had
HD.
It had the NES remix in those games, which were awesome.
They're good.
So
it had more. It had more new Super Mario Brothers, but it also had Super Mario 3D World,
which was fucking awesome.
Which is really good. Yeah. The Mario Kart's better.
Mario Kart 8, yeah.
Mario Kart 8 is better. Smash 4, I think, is more, people like it more.
A lot of people feel that way, yeah.
Yeah, so the Wii U is better. This worst system that Nintendo ever made. Have a good day.
I don't know about that, but yeah, it is a little bit weaker.